Now, even though that sometimes we go first, we mention first Moshe and then Aharon, and sometimes we first mention Aharon and then Moshe. Amar Razal, our sages say, why is this? Because they are the same. So sometimes this one comes first, sometimes this one comes first, to teach you they are the same level. Even so, Mikol Makim, גם בזגוף המובן שיש מקום לבר שבמקום שהוזכר מוישה תחילה שם הוא העיקר ובמקום שהוזכר אהרון תחילה שם הוא העיקר. Even so, they're the same, yeah, but sometimes Moshe is mentioned first, so that means that in that place when he's mentioned first, he's the main thing, and when Aaron is mentioned first, in that place he's the main thing. ועל דרך שבעניין כיבוד אבוהם and מוירה אבוהם, the same thing happens with a different mitzvah, nothing to do with what we were talking about, but we're going to understand the same thing, the same idea, when you have to honor your father and your mother, and you have to fear your father and your mother. When you have to honor, the Torah says first your father and then your mother. When you have to fear, the Torah says first your mother and then your father. Why? Even though our sages say that this shows you that father and mother is the same, basically the same level, you have to honor both and fear both. Even so, Rashi explains, when the Torah says you have to fear your mother and your father, Rashi says, here the Torah, when talking about fear, here the Torah precedes the mother and then the father, because God knows that the son fears his father more than his mother. It's a natural thing. And when he's talking about honoring, the Torah says first the father and then the mother. Why? Because God knows that a son honors the mother more than the father, so the Torah says go honor your father. So we see that even though they're the same level, however, when one is mentioned first, it's because in that place he is the main thing, and when the other one is mentioned first, because in that place he is the main thing. According to this, so the Rebbe proved from like the scripture the concept he's saying. Moshe comes first because he's the main thing. Aaron comes first because he's the main thing, wherever that means, wherever it is. According to this, you're going to see that the main thing in the Torah, what is the Torah looking for? You should change your nature. That's the main thing. The Torah mentions first that person or whatever, father, mother, or Moshe, Aharon, that case in which you have to change more the nature in order to fulfill it. Like in the case of the father, honor him. Oi, for me it's easy to fear him. No. Go honor him. And your mother, go fear her. No. For me it's easy to honor her. No. Go fear her. Same thing happens with Moshe and Aharon. This is a very fundamental thing in the service of a person to God. As it's brought in a book of teachings of the Baal Shem Tov in the name of Reb Sadia Gaon. Now I'm going to not read the parentheses. Let's skip the parentheses. This is going to make it very clear. What is brought in the name of the Baal Shem Tov? I'm sorry, that the Baal Shem Tov said in the name of Reb Sadia Gaon. What is brought? Ki ikar briyas ha'adam b'olam hazeh hi leshaber midas ha'tiviyos sheloi. The main thing in the work of a person towards God, whatever, service of God, in this world is to break your natural emotions, etc. Now, what's the connection with Abraham? That's what God said to Abraham. This is not only something that the Baal Shem Tov mentioned in the name of Rasadia Goen, you have to look for the source. No. What do you mean a source? It's in the Torah. God told this to Abraham. What did God tell Abraham? Lech lecha, go out, so to speak. Me artzecha, from your land. Me moladetecha, from the place you were born. Dehainu. What does that mean? hateva shenelalta imoy. You have to change, go out of the nature you were born with. Change it. With this, the Rebbe proved the idea that is a very fundamental thing in the service of God to change your nature.
Yeah.
As it's explained in many places, when explaining this verse regarding Abraham, Lech Lecha, go out, etc. The idea, the teaching of that is to go out of your nature. Because the Rebbe doesn't mention this, because it's not the main thing of this discourse, but the idea is it's very important. Torah is not a book of history. I mean, there are also his stories, and it's important, and it gives some kind of historical background and context, but that's not the point of the book. The point of the book is teachings. So if we learn about Abraham, I don't really care who Abraham was or what he did when he went, and just tell me what I have to do. I want to serve God. Tell me, what can I eat, what can I not eat? Not eat. No, the Torah is teaching you how to serve God by telling you what happened with Abraham. Leave your nature. Go out of your own nature. Now, the same thing we found in the writings of our Rebbe in Chassidus. The whole inyan Chassidus, the whole thing of Chassidus, what is it? What do the Rebbe, so to speak, want from us? To change the nature of our emotions. Or, another option, another way of understanding it, midoi savativim. You have to change your natural inclinations. Like the two ways of understanding brought in the writings of the previous Rebbe. Likutei Diburim is a book of writings of talks of the previous Rebbe. So the connection is there. You have to change your nature. That's what God told Abraham.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes you have to.
Yeah, sometimes you have to read again.
Yeah. It's very common. Sometimes I learn with my children. When I have a son and a daughter in Eretz Israel, and constantly I do this. Let's skip the parentheses. Let's skip the brackets, and they hate it. Like, wait a minute, it's written over there. Listen to me. Let's skip it, and we go back afterwards. Don't worry. I'm going to read it. It makes clear. The thing gets clearer.
Yeah, makes it more clear. Yes.
Next paragraph. This is where the Maimer takes a turn, and I think it's very, very genius and very interesting to talk about Bnei Noach particularly. The Rebbe is talking just about this.
Mm-hmm.
Until now, we spoke about Moshe, Aharon, going out of Egypt, talking to Pharaoh, very nice. The Maimar, the discourse could have finished over here. It's okay, the Rebbe explains something, it's clear. No, the discourse continues. And it says like this. Now, Shem Shehaya B'Yetzias Mitzrayim, just as it was in going out of Egypt. How was it? Sheleda Verim Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, Huktam Moshe le'Aharon, that to talk to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. First came Moshe and then came Aharon. Why? So the Rebbe explained through the whole discourse, Mishum she'atoira bekoicha lifol gam beleuma zeh ubeumos ha'olam bichlal. Because it is in the strength of the Torah to affect the other side, so to speak. Of course, it's just God, but God creates, so to speak, evil in order to be able to choose. So we have an influence on the other side also, and in the nations of the world, in general. Just why again?
He's not talking about Olam Haba.
No, definitely no.
There I make a mistake in my translation.
Yeah, no.
Be'olam hazeh, be'olam haba. So
no, he's saying le'umas zeh ube'umois ha'olam. Those are the words. Means the Torah has the strength to affect the other side, like evil in the world. You can change evil through Torah, and you can change the nations of the world through Torah. Now he's talking about non-Jews. This directly. That this is what it means. No other like second idea. No. He's talking about non-Jews, and he's going to explain. Al derech zeh, just as Moshe had to affect Pharaoh, which was after all a non-Jew. Al derech zeh, the same way. Ugam be'avodas ha'adam. The same thing you can apply in the service of man to God. What does that mean? Now, Yadua Mashekatsav Rambam. It's known what the Rambam, Maimonides, wrote. Shetziva Moshe mipi Agvura lokuf kol boy ha'olam lekabel mitzvahs shenistavu b'nei Noach. God told Moshe in the Mount of Sinai, in Mount Sinai, to force, these are the words of the Rambam, to force all the human people, all the humans, all the people of the world to accept the commandments that were given to all the Bnei Noach, those who are not Jews. Let's go into the brackets. Why is it that? Why does Judaism have to go and talk to non-Jews? What do I care? It's non-Jew. Because in the world to come, it's going to be fulfilled, that which is written. What is it written? God will be the king. First of all, the king of all the human beings. And moreover, it's a verse that talks about the main thing of Bnei Noach. God says, I'm going to turn myself to all the nations with a clear tongue, so to speak, with a clear language, in order so everybody should call in the name of God, to serve him shoulder to shoulder, like everybody together will serve God. So it's written clearly that, like in other words, do you want Mashiach to come? Yeah, we're talking about Mashiach. Okay, you know what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Everybody's going to serve God. Now, everybody means even non-Jews. So how do you want non-Jews to serve God if they have no idea what you're talking about? Who is God? What does it mean to serve him? So you're going to have to prepare something in order that when Mashiach comes, people are going to say, oh yeah, this is what it means to serve God. So you're going to have to do something. The Rebbe says clearly, everybody is going to recognize that God is a king. Lochen, therefore, everybody has to recognize this. So you better talk about God to everybody. Therefore, just as a way of preparing yourself for this, today, nowadays, so to speak, we have an obligation. He's talking to Jews, so we have an obligation to force every human being to accept these seven mitzvahs, etc., etc. So in the brackets, he explained, it's not written in other places. The Rebbe is making a very strong connection. You want everybody to understand that God is the king, so you better talk to them about God. Otherwise, forget it. They're not gonna get it. Okay, this is end of the brackets. Let's go back, so to speak. The phrase started saying that everybody knows, so to speak, everybody knows what the Rambam wrote. And the Rambam wrote, go talk about the seven mitzvahs to everybody. End of the brackets. The הכוונה בזה, אין שקיימות המצוות רק מחמת שכל, שכן, נצטווה נויח. The idea here is not that they should fulfill these commandments only because that's what Noach was commanded to do. No, that's not enough. Elo, rather, mishum sheken tziva al yedei HaKadosh Baruch b'Torah. Rather, and the Rambam writes this, the Rebbe is just paraphrasing the Rambam, and he says in the parenthesis, like the Rambam himself continues saying, they have to fulfill the commandments because God told Moshe in Mount Sinai to go tell all the people to do this. I mean, you can find many people, like normal people, non-Jews, that will tell you, I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to kill anybody. Like, forget it. My parents never taught me this. I'm a normal person. Why should I do it? I'm not interested. And that's okay. But you should not refrain from killing because it makes sense. Rather, because God told Moshe to tell the Jewish people, to tell every non-Jew not to kill. That's why you should not kill. That's what it's saying. Similarly to what the Rambam wrote in his commentary to the Mishnah, a different book, there he writes like this. Regarding, he's talking about Jews and for Jews, but the Rebbe is again proving from a text a concept. What does the Rambam say regarding the precept, the commandment of circumcision? The Rambam writes like this. שאין אנו מעלים מפני שאברהם אבינו עליו השלום מולס עצמוי ואנשי ביתו. We, the Jews, do not circumcise ourselves because Abraham, our forefather, whatever, circumcised himself and the people of his house. No. That's not the reason why we circumcise. Why? The Rambam writes, rather, because God told Moshe to tell us to circumcise. That's the reason we circumcise. That means the Av shebris ze ubrisa shel Avraham Avinu, even though when we actually go and circumcise our children, we mention that this is the pact of Avraham Avinu, covenant of Avraham Avinu, kenusach habaracha lachnisa bebrisa shel Avraham Avinu, just as we say in the blessing that we actually do when we circumcise, we say that we thank God, whatever, and we're bringing this child into the covenant of Avraham. So we mention Avraham. It's not like we erase Avraham from the whole story. No. We mention him. However, Mikol Makim, we fulfill this commandment because the Torah says, actually in Parshas Tazria, the Parshas of this week, in the 8th day you have to circumcise him. So the same thing the Rebbe is applying to Bnei Noach. It's true. You can refrain from killing because you're a normal person, and it's okay. It's better than nothing. It's better like that's better than going around killing people. Okay, you're fine. But the real reason why you should not kill is because God says. Same thing applies with the 7 commandments of Bnei Noach. Even though they are called commandments of Bnei Noach, and Noach lived many years before giving of the Torah, before Moshe Rabbeinu. So you could say, I don't need Moshe, I don't need Torah, I don't need anything else. God told Noach, and I fulfilled what God told Noach. What's the problem? No. Mikol Makim, even so, kiyumam tzarich liyev mechamas sheken nitztava b'matan Torah. The reason why they fulfill these commandments has to be because that's what Hashem told Moshe in the giving of the Torah. The same thing happens. The obligation to force them to fulfill them. The way of understanding these commandments has to be that they should fulfill them because they were given for them in the giving of the Torah through Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? You can ask again, wait a second, I have Noach. Noach is my forefather. He was, so to speak, a good guy, whatever, tzaddik. The Torah says he was a just guy, righteous guy. So I have Noach, I don't need Moshe. So the Rebbe is explaining why you need Moshe in this case, in this context. There are other explanations, but in this context, why do you need Moshe? Because only, or specifically with the strength of the Torah, you can influence nations of the world, that they should recognize the kingship of God, as we explained regarding Pharaoh. Why was Moshe the main thing to talk to Pharaoh and not Aaron? Apparently Aaron had a good tongue, so to speak, and Moshe not. So why is Moshe the main thing? Torah. Just with Torah, you can do something good. You can elevate, the Rebbe is going to say this, you can elevate non-Jews. No other way. So that's why the only reason why a non-Jew should fulfill the commandments is because they're written in the Torah. If you separate the Torah from these commandments, like saying, I have Noach, I don't need Moshe, so you don't have the strength of the Torah. So it's not going to last. It's true, you might not kill, you might not be a thief, whatever, it's okay, but it's not going to last. You're not going to be able to say this to somebody else and really influence on somebody else. Forget it. Just through Torah. The Rebbe mentioned Anoichi. Anoichi means the first Hebrew word of the 10 Commandments, and that actually means, one of the explanations, Aramaic, 4 words, Ananafshi Kesavis Yahavis. I myself gave into these writings. It's true. Avraham had the Torah. but he did not have the strength to go beyond himself. No. Only because God put himself into the Torah and he gave it to us that we can actually connect to him. Yeah. In other words, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, all of them had the Torah. Yeah, it's true. Even Noach had the Torah also. That's clear in the writings, in Rashi also, it's clear. However, they were only able to reach to the source of the creation, not to God. Because the creation cannot go beyond himself unless God comes in and says, hello, I'm going to drive you to me. So we need the Torah, because the Torah is like the expression of the essence of God. And that's why we can, through the Torah, connect to him. But only if he gives himself. Before he gave himself, it's impossible. Yaakov Avinu, the Zohar says that Yaakov fulfilled the mitzvah of tefillin, like the phylactery is tefillin. Okay, Yaakov fulfilled the mitzvah of tefillin when he was multiplying the sheep of Lavan with some sticks that he made, the sticks, whatever. So the Zohar says those sticks did the same thing that we do, the Jews, with the tefillin. Okay, the Zohar says, so we take it, whatever, we accept it, no problem. But Chassidus explains something very interesting. After Yaakov finished with the sticks, like he made all the sheep and he finished with it, he just threw them away. That's it. It's a piece of wood. I don't care. Threw them away. Tefillin are a holy thing, a holy whatever thing, object, and you cannot throw it away. Actually, when tefillin fall, if you're managing your tefillin, they fall, you have to fast. It's like a holy thing that fell in the floor, whatever. So, what's the difference? Why did Yaakov throw them away if they were tefillin and we cannot throw them away? Chassidus explains, because Yaakov was not able, even though he was a holy man, blah, 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 he was not able to fill the world with God's presence. Like, transform the world, like from a very mundane thing into a holy thing. He wasn't able to do that. Even though he fulfilled the mitzvah of tefillin, but he wasn't able to fill the world with kedusha, with sanctity. Today, we, of course, we're not even close to Yaakov, of course, but we can fill the world with kedusha, something Yaakov could not do. Why? Because we have the Torah. Matan Torah is like the moment that this changes. Vehine. Now, Inyan Zedelahu was called by Olam, this idea that the Rambam writes to force all the human beings to fulfill these commandments, it was impossible to fulfill this in the previous generations. To the point that there was a time where this was actually dangerous. Imagine a Jew in the Spanish Inquisition going out and say, hey, everybody has to fulfill this. What are you talking about? No, impossible. Which is not the case in the last generations. The world changed. The literal translation is change the reality. Metzius is like reality. But the world changed. Everything changed. In such a way, that there is a possibility of actually forcing everybody to fulfill these commandments. Why is this like that? We could say, to explain this, why something changed? Because in the world to come, in the future to come, is going to be fulfilled. This thing, this matter of God is going to have the kingship. Everybody is going to recognize that He is the king. And it's known, it's actually a law, that in Friday before Shabbos comes in, it's a good thing, it's a mitzvah to taste from each food that you prepare for Shabbos. So before Shabbos, you have to taste a little bit Shabbos. Lochen, therefore, Davka bizman hazeh, be'erev Shabbos shel hageulah, specifically in our days, in the previous moments, so to speak, the Friday of the redemption, Nischat Shoaib Sharius Biede Israel came through the, so to speak, renovated, something like that. The possibility with in the Jewish people, Lokov Baya Oilam, to force everybody else, the notes Soifam Betchilasim Betchilasim Soifam. And the end is connected to the beginning, and the beginning is connected to the end. So this started with Noach. And of course, he spoke with God, whichever way, some kind of nevius, how do you say, prophecy. And of course, he was fulfilling these commandments, and he taught these commandments, etc. And the end, which is now, is connected to that beginning. Now we can teach the same way to everybody the commandments. The same thing we found, this is what the Rebbe says, is very interesting. I would love to see the faces of the people listening at that moment, the Rebbe. Very interesting. The same thing we find teaching godliness between non-Jews, the nations of the world, by Avraham Avinu. Abraham, our forefather. Shaya HaYehudi Arishon, he was the first Jew. Boy, as it's written by him, Vayikra Sham Beshem Hashem Keleilam. He used to call there, whatever there was, what he was, the God is the king or the God of the world. He made everybody else call in the name of God. Our sages say, the Rebbe is like very, in this part, it's very concise. It's quoting so many different places in the Talmud, in the Midrash. So you have to put everything together. The teaching says that Vayikra Sham Beshem Havaya Keleilam. Avram, wherever he was, he himself called in the name of God. And our sages say, Al Tikra Vayikra, don't say he called, Ela Vayakri, he made others call in the name of God. So this is what the Rebbe is quoting over here. So Avram made an effort to make everybody else call in the name of God. Moreover, this is another huge teaching. Moreover, the way Abraham taught about God was in a way of God world and not God of the world. The regular simple translation of Kel Oilam, simple translation, not this discourse translation, is God is the king of the world. God is the God of the world, so to speak, the ruler of the world, or whatever. Okay, that's fine, and that's English, plain English, it's okay. But our sages say something in Hasidus very, very precise. The Torah says, Kel Oilam. Translation wrong, but like very low level translation, God world. What do you mean, God world? God of the world. Okay, in English you have to inject these words, and it makes sense. God of the world. But take out these words, which are not written over there in Hebrew, and says God world. It should have said, Kel Ha'olam, God of the world. In Hebrew should have said that, but it doesn't say that. Why? Because there's a unity between God and the world. Don't think that the world is something separated from God, something independent of God. No. So it's not just that Abraham taught about God. There's a God, there's a ruler, there's a king. Okay, very nice. Abraham told them, everybody, that God is one with the world. There's no other thing as God. And apparently they understood it. This is what Abraham used to teach. Probably had some chassidic discourses over there, and that's what he taught. As he's explained in many places, Hadiuk, this precise letter, so to speak, quote unquote, missing letter in the text, this idea of God and the world are not two different, separated things, God forbid. The world itself, rather, that the world itself is godliness. Not that the world is God. No, that's a philosophical garbage. The world is godliness. I mean, you can see God in the world, and God is completely connected to the world. This is what Abraham taught. Why? Okay, so the Rebbe now talks about like Kabbalistic things from Zohar, from Arizal. So he's not going to explain. I can explain, no problem. This is one idea. The contraction is not literal. And Velashon Zohar, as the Zohar says in Kabbalah, Leis Asar Panoi Minei. This is in Aramaic. There's no place, Leis, there's no. Asar is in Aramaic place. Ponui, free, Minei, of him. There's no place devoid of God. This last line, the Rebbe is referencing very deep ideas, not complex, but deep ideas. And there was a discussion, famous discussion between the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, and the Gaon of Vilna. He was pretty much against Hasidus. He was also a very big Mekubal. The Gaon of Vilna used to say, Tzimtzum kipshutoi. Different from this discourse. Tzimtzum means contraction. It's a like Kabbalistic idea that the Arizal brought in, that basically what it means is that God's presence in the world is like hidden. This is how Hasidus understands. The Gaon of Vilna would tell you God is not in certain places of the world. He left certain places of the world. And Alter Rebbe used to say, wait a second, it's written, Leis Asar Panoi, there's no place devoid of God. What do you do with that writing, with that verse, so to speak? It's in Zohar, but what do you do with that piece of Zohar? I don't know what the Gaon of Vilna would say. I don't know. But this was a very famous discussion. Very famous discussion. Tzimtzum kipshuto or not. There's a whole explanation of this by Aryeh Kaplan. He has a translation of Sefer HaBohir, and there he explains this also. He wasn't a chassidic Chabad chassid. He was from Breslev, but he explains pretty well this idea. But this is basically very, very briefly what the idea is. Tzimtzum kipshutoi, literal or not literal. Because when you only read the writings of the Arizal, which the Arizal didn't actually write anything, his Talmidim, his students wrote, when you read there, you could understand it both ways. He's talking about it literally, God went away from the world, or he's talking about he concealed himself. He hid himself from the world. You can read it in both ways.